It is Monday night. It is Dylan Talks Tone on kprlive.com. We got some controversy tonight. We got some subjects that a lot of people don't like to hear my little dose of reality on, so we'll see what happens. It's Dylan Talks Tone. How's it going?
Good. I like that little extra touch on the end there.
The Dylan Talks Tone.
I like it.
Well, hey, before we get really going tonight, there's a couple things I want you to do. Go over to Facebook and the Dylan Talks Tone Facebook page, and that's where we have a little discussion thread going right now, and see if we can get some chat going and various stuff. It's where you can kind of be involved in what we're doing, because you're really what drives our show. Everything we talk about every week is kind of your idea, as the listener. We're trying again to have some video for YouTube for tomorrow. We had some problems with that last week, so we're going a little different route this week. We'll see what happens. So we're pretty stoked about that. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dylan Talks Tone, so that you can get updates every time I upload a video. I uploaded 2 today because of our, whole talk about setup and all that sort of stuff. We actually uploaded the video to go along with the intonation, the intonation episode. I'm messing with levels a little bit because I got a new headphone amp, and so I sound better to me. I don't know.
You sound better to me. I sound better to me.
You always sound good to me. So yeah, we had a good week. Building a charity guitar for that charity in Michigan.
Right.
Which is a pretty cool deal. This is the second one we've done, so I'm really stoked to be a part of that. So we're going to post some pictures about that. We're going to start doing some how-to videos on actual installation of parts and stuff on the YouTube channel. And then you'll be able to go to the dylansguitarshop.com website, and we've added a section of parts that we really like and what we use on our custom builds and all that sort of stuff. So the cool part about that, though, is not only is that stuff available, but in the section, you'll be able to go and watch how-to videos about how to install all that stuff.
So it's going to take a complete level of service there. Yeah, self-service.
Those are the questions that we get a lot, and I really, it sounds dumb to some people. Okay, well, let me back up. I don't even want to say dumb. The challenge to putting a show together like this and putting a YouTube channel together. We have over 200 videos on the YouTube channel, and all the haters are well, this is too easy. You're making it too complicated. This is a dumb subject, etc., etc., etc. The challenge is to make these how-tos and, helping people understand tone and stuff, making it easy enough to understand for a beginner, but engaging enough for somebody that, that plays all the time and really knows everything, knows a lot of stuff. So it's challenging. And so we're going to kind of do some more of the basic things for people that aren't as familiar, and make it to where they can work on their own guitars for real and not just, understand the basic stuff. So no, I'm super stoked about it. It's really fun. We have people asking on our YouTube or on our Facebook page already, what is this controversy? And I'm just going to say, you have to listen.
Yeah, tune in.
So let's just message this guy. It's terrible for radio, but we're telling him KPR live. So, because we're going to talk about shims tonight. Our main subject in a little while is, should you use shims? How do you use shims? What does it do? We're going to discuss that later on in the show. And yeah, so that's that. What do you got going this week?
So this week in music was a little fun. I'm having more fun with this every time I do a little bit of research. So again, I like to do these. Dylan's actually getting a copy of this now, but I know he's not looking at it. So
I looked at it tonight, but I did not understand everything you put on it. So I'm excited to.
Some of it doesn't have a purpose.
Okay.
Some of it is just to get a reaction out of you.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Okay.
So taking it back for the week, May 2nd.
This is our week in music history, y'all. Go ahead.
1972, Les Harvey of Stone the Crows was electrocuted on stage by a microphone and later died. He was only 25. So I was literally like, being electrocuted, water on the stage, festival kind of things, I was curious, like, does that really happen? Does it?
Oh, yeah.
So there's literally this article I found, and I'm going to share it in our Facebook group, where a list of all the musicians that have been electrocuted. Like, 2 of them have died. Most of them haven't, but some pretty serious injuries.
Well, you know why that is, right?
Because water and not grounded.
No water. It's because old guitar amplifiers.
These were microphones.
I know.
Okay.
So old guitar amplifiers were not grounded, and they had to be, there was a switch on the back and there was a capacitor. They call it the death cap for a reason. And I think I've even had some repairs in here where I've taken the death cap out of some amps. And this is why, is because it creates a ground loop with the microphone. And you would touch the microphone. The dangerous part about it is, if you're holding a guitar and you've got metal strings here and metal strings here, you literally shock yourself across your chest. That's why it will kill you.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's a real thing. I mean, I've been shocked by them before. There's a particular divey bar that I used to play at all the time.
That you got electrocuted?
I gotten electrocuted by a microphone there before.
I mean, but if the electricity was working there, you were probably lucky.
It's true.
It's quite noisy electricity there.
Yep. That place I couldn't even play P90s there. There was just no way. Yeah. That place was pretty loud. Anyway.
All right. May 3rd, 1990. 2 Live Crew released their album Banned in the USA. I just wanted to see your reaction to that.
I remember.
I won't talk about how old I was at that time and to have listened to it.
So how inappropriate it was, really, for anybody to listen to 2 Live Crew, but for you at whatever age you were at that time.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great.
May 4th.
Great parenting. Anyway.
Well, when the parents don't know, you can't blame it on the parents.
No, this is true.
May 4th, 1959, the first annual Grammy Award winners were announced. And the ceremony was held on both the American coasts simultaneously. So that's pretty interesting.
Interesting.
So
Did you look at who was like album of the year that year or anything?
1959, I'm sure I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. It's really funny because, we joke about how crappy, a lot of people will say, well, music nowadays, blah, blah, blah. And, the Grammys and Billboard and all this stuff, and music sucks. But if you go back to the early 60s and late 50s, the bubblegum bebop stuff that was winning Grammys and number one, number one songs of those years were terrible. They were always terrible.
Right.
Popular music, we talked about this the other day.
Has historically always been.
It's always been kind of terrible.
That's funny.
And everybody's like, well, music isn't what it used to be. Well, okay. Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy is an incredible record. But not every record that year was that good.
Right.
Right? So you take a 50 or 60 year history of music and come out with 100 really good records of the tens of thousands of records.
Right.
It's not all music has ever been always good. A lot of it has been just as sucky as we think some of it is now. Or not us, not we, not me, but people that are old.
Dr. Seuss.
Or act old.
It's funny. All right, so May 5th was a big one. 1986, it was announced that Cleveland, Ohio would be home to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What's interesting about this is that was established in 1983, but it didn't open until 1995. So we're talking a span of from 83 to 95 before it ever opened. 86 is when they decided that it would be in Cleveland. And then I did find it interesting, like, why was Cleveland picked? So Alan Freed, we talked about him the other day. So the DJ, and he also held the first rock and roll concert in Cleveland. They had WMMS, which broke several major U.S. acts in the 70s and 80s, including David Bowie, Bruce Springsteen, Rush. They were a premier tour stop for touring bands. And then the city pledged $65 million in public money, and a petition was signed by 600,000 fans to choose Cleveland over Memphis. And then back in the day, USA Today polling in 1986, they also won that and where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should be held.
Really?
So I just thought that was cool. I didn't know the history of how it ended up there.
The $65 million in public money probably had big something to do with it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
May 6th, 2005, the statue of James Brown was unveiled. It's a bronze life-size statue to commemorate the musical accomplishments of James Brown. And that is right here in Augusta, Georgia.
I have taken my picture with it many times. In fact, one of my profile pictures on one of my social medias is me in a selfie with James Brown. Yep.
That is cool.
The bronze James Brown.
The bronze. All right, May 7th, 1978. 90,000 tickets were sold in less than 8 hours. Okay, if we just stop right there, in 1978, it wasn't computerized. People probably had to show up to a box office. 90,000 tickets.
There wasn't
a lot of
massive ticket buyer.
There weren't bots.
Junk.
Yeah. 90,000 tickets in 8 hours. And it was Bob Dylan shows that were going to be, it was then called the London's Wembley Empire Pool, which is now the Wembley Arena. And then I'm like, why was it called a pool? I digress and start researching things. And apparently this facility was built in 1934 for the British Empire Games. And then it was used in 1948 for the Summer Olympics. So
Really?
It literally was a pool at one time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Pretty cool.
No, a lot of people play there too.
Really?
Yep.
So then bringing it to today, May 8th, there's nothing. Nothing in today's history. But
Nothing cool happened on May 8th ever.
Not really.
All
Not
right.
enough to discuss. But I do want to talk about, so last night was the inaugural MTV Movie and TV Awards.
Right.
New show.
Really?
And it's this is
So it's not
first
the
time.
MTV Movie Awards like it's
No,
been in the
it's not.
past.
That was the music awards.
I thought they had a movie thing too.
This is movie and TV.
Okay.
And this was the first one. And it was interesting that they're bringing it from a perspective of like what the state of our country is right now, like equality and rights. So, for instance, the voting categories, like all genders are in the same voting category. So the Best Actor award actually was to a girl. It went to Emma Watson.
Okay.
They had an award, Best Fight Against the System, that was given to Hidden Figures.
Oh, that was an awesome movie, too.
They had an award for Best Kiss, which was in Moonlight. So it's kind of random ideas, but and apparently they were allowed to be a lot more vocal about their views and about equality. And I mean, the article I read, it was like language was kind of terrible, and but I just thought that was interesting that they're, you know, trying to do something different. But what is funny to me is that they're almost taking a stab at this system.
Right. It almost
but it's
sounds
the same
very
movies.
Socially.
They're all Oscar-winning movies already.
Oh.
You know, so I don't know what you really proved. But,
nothing.
And then I just wanted to mention, because I'm talking about dates and things that go on, but before we meet again next week, Mother's Day is Sunday. So for all you guys listening, wives, mothers, just helping
Take
you
care
out.
of them. Yep. And personal plug, if you're trying to think of something to get somebody, shoot Leslie a message on Facebook. She might have some ideas for you. So speaking of paying bills, you know, it's my show. We probably could put you in here on some bill paying stuff. But we're going to talk real quick about somebody that supports Dylan Talks Tone and has for a couple of years. We're going to talk about Lizard Spit again because their products just keep on giving.
And they're all over the house if y'all don't believe that he uses them.
They're everywhere.
I promise he uses them.
Yep. We talked about slick nuts last week. You had stepped out of the studio. See? She laughs. I knew it. I knew I'd get her just then. Slick nuts. You squirt this.
For that.
You squirt this in your nuts, and then they slide. They do not grip, and your guitar stays in better tune.
Why would you want... Okay, for real guitars, why would you want your nut to slip?
You want the string to slide in
within the groove. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about the sliding in the slot. So, yeah. So let's talk about... She's dying, y'all. This is funny. Let's talk about Lizard Spit VIP this week. It is vintage instrument polish. This stuff is yellow. It's like a weird milky yellow color. The one thing I would caution you is don't use it. Well, I'm not going to caution you. It's going to say it in the directions. Don't use it on cracked surface finishes because it is yellow, and then you won't be able to rub it off, and it almost looks like wax that gets stuck on a car, like around the emblems and stuff, so you don't want to have that. But if you have a good clean finish on your guitar, smooth, use this stuff. It removes oxidation. If you have, this works really good on like vintage nitro finishes. I've taken some 1960s guitars that haven't been cleaned in decades and rubbed this stuff on it and brought the finish right back. This stuff is fantastic. Lizard Spit VIP vintage instrument polish for all paint surfaces that aren't cracked. Anyway, it works really well. It takes old wax buildup and oxidation and all that sort of stuff off of especially vintage finishes. I think you'll really super dig it if you try it, along with all of the other lizardspit.com products that we have been featuring for the last few weeks. So, Okay, so that bill is paid.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about some YouTube questions? Did you have any this week?
We had, okay, so the majority of YouTube interaction was two people fighting over a string tension argument that has been going on for about 3 weeks on one of my videos.
Is the video about string tension?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about top wrapping a Les Paul and whether it makes a difference and et cetera, et cetera. No, it doesn't. It's a stupid idea. Fight me. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, we got really technical. You can check that video out. We got really technical in that video and talked about string tension and break angles and all that sort of stuff that's on the Dylan Talks Tone YouTube channel. And man, these people are fighting it out. And it just got really funny. But so here's what I'll tell you is the more comments I get on a video, the better it does in like YouTube statistics.
Right.
So we're getting like tons of views on it. So
go argue.
Yeah,
on a
go
post.
argue. Go fight with me on something on one of my videos. And it really helps me, do me a favor. I appreciate it. Plus it's just fun to watch. Real questions that we got that we could have actual answers to. What is the difference between plastic and cloth covered wire, and is there some sort of benefit to one or the other? The answer is they're both wire, and you could use them interchangeably and it won't hurt anything. A lot of the real vintage buffs don't want to see plastic wire because they think it's cheap. But the real reason is availability. Before, when the Telecaster came out, for instance, Fender was buying a lot of military stuff that was laying around and, surplus parts and stuff like that. And the bottom line is in the 40s and the early 50s, all wire was cloth covered. Rubber wire, like PVC wire, was not used anywhere except for in military applications. PVC was actually designed and invented, at least in a wiring application, for submarines because they were trying to figure out how to make wires waterproof. But even in the 50s, it was still pretty limited that they were using it in any kind of consumer products that you could afford. So, of course, Fender, being miserly in his manufacturing processes, he used cloth. And then when Fender sold to CBS in 1965, about 2 years or so it took for them to use up all the old parts, and then they switched over to plastic. But there's no real reason. Plastic's not cheap. It doesn't sound worse. There's no reason for it. It was just a circumstance of history.
Right.
Really. Like a lot of
As
this
with
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, lacquer and cloth wire and all that stuff. Even, alder and pine, and those were all economic and availability choices. There was really no other reason other than that. So don't get hung up on that stuff, man. Just play guitar. Play more, surf less. That's what I always say. Unless you're a surfer. Then I would say half and half. Go with whatever the weather's doing. That was really the biggest one. I did watch a really cool, so speaking of music history and kind of our view of music, and I always try to keep a real open mind about music, right? Like, try to listen to everything. I think I made a post the other day. It was like, just hit me with some new music, man. I don't care what it is. I don't care if I never heard of it. I don't care if I potentially will hate it.
It was really fun too.
It was. And we got 4 or 5 really good ones. And just so you know, when you do that, when we ask our viewers and listeners and stuff, and we're like, hey man, give us music suggestions. We literally did. We sat down. We were sitting at the table. Sorry, the gambler went through my head. Because I'm about to talk about that. So we sat down at the table. We literally got out iTunes and we started going through music. And we listened to like 3 or 4 songs of each band that you suggested. I mean, it was really fun. I'm going to do it probably a couple times a month. That was great. Anyway, I listened to or watched this. I was making some pickups the other day, watching this Netflix documentary called Country: Portraits of an American Sound. The reason I bring this up is I am very, very outspoken and vocal about the fact that I do not tell people that their music sucks. I never do.
It's bad karma for one.
And it doesn't suck just because you don't like it.
Yes.
Where we live, and of course, because I make Telecasters for a living, we're surrounded by country music. And so a lot of people will constantly be like, yeah, well, this new country, blah, 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 and it's not real, and Waylon, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I suggest that all of you people that talk like that and think like that, go watch, and even if you don't, go watch this Netflix documentary. It's really, really cool. I learned a lot of stuff about the history of country music. The bottom line is the very first guy that put a cowboy hat on was like, I think more people would buy my records if I wore a cowboy hat instead of a suit. It's always been about image, even all the way back in the 40s and stuff.
Right.
So, really interesting documentary. I would definitely check that out for sure. And in my reading, okay, so this is another thing. A little bit of a soapbox, but not really. One of the things that has been coming up on the internet this week that I've noticed a few times is the counterfeit guitar situation. And I actually read an article, I don't even know how old it is, but in Premier Guitar Magazine, I want to say Sean Hammond probably wrote it. And he talked about counterfeit guitars. Nope. Actually, he did not write it. Anyway, counterfeit guitars. This is where a company, usually Chinese, but not always. There are some American companies too that will actually like copy to a T another brand of a guitar. So like Gibson Les Pauls are the ones I think of the most. They'll actually clone them, like every little thing about them, clone them and sell them. They've got these Chinese ones that you can buy. You could get like a quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, clone.
Air quotes on radio.
Yeah, but we got the YouTubes too. The clone of like a Les Paul for $500. And people are buying these things, man. And it is not cool. It's stealing.
Yeah, when I peeked at this article also, it was, I mean, some people don't know they're buying them as part of the problem too.
Right. Yep. It's, well, okay. You could say that, and I get it. However, if you're ordering a Les Paul from Shenzhen, China, it's fake. You know what you're doing. Now, if you're importing, you're buying it from, I think in that article in Premier Guitar, they confronted or tried to get, people to interview for the article that were in the United States, like, in South Carolina and in New Jersey and stuff. And these were guys that were knowingly doing it and then selling it
Right.
to, people on eBay and stuff. And they were not aware.
So truly dishonest. They're trying to put them off as the real thing.
Yes.
Price wise and everything.
No, that's the thing.
They are less.
They're
than
less.
Price.
Yeah. So do your research, do some reading if you're going to buy, especially a used Gibson or Fender instrument. So that brings up another question, though, because you could say, well, doesn't Dylan Custom Guitars make tele copies and Strat copies? Yes, we do. So what's the difference? If you are stealing somebody else's design versus those. Well, there's two things. One is we're not trying to pass them off as a Fender or a Gibson or a whatever. They've got my name on them. And the branding surrounding them, so the peg head shape and the logo and all that stuff, is nowhere near Fender, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that, what was it, in 2000? I wrote this down, but I forgot. 2009?
Mm-hmm.
Fender actually lost a lawsuit where they were trying to say no one can copy the Strat, the Tele, or the Precision bass. And they lost it because they said, the court basically said that for decades people have been copying this, and just because of the sheer number of them, you don't own the shape anymore. Now, of course, they owned it for the first 17 years of the patent, but that has long since expired, and they do not own the shape. Now, Gibson has gone to much more work to shut down people that are copying their shapes and stuff. But if you're building a guitar, I've had customers call me and say, hey man, I'm making Gibson Les Paul copies and I want to use your pickups in them. And I tell them, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just don't want to have anything to do with it. Now, using a familiar shape, tell you the Strat, you know what? That's different because there is no intellectual property issues there. And we're not stealing anything, and we're not using somebody else's design. And somebody could say, well, what about peg head shape? Now, I use a different peg head shape. I don't use the Tele or the Strat peg head shape. But for companies that do use it, they're actually paying a licensing fee to Fender. So like a company like Mighty Might is paying for every neck that they build a percentage of that sale to Fender. That is a licensing agreement.
That makes sense.
So Fender probably digs that because they don't have to do anything. They're just taking a percentage of the whole thing. So that's how it works. That's what the law is, and so that's what we do. But counterfeit guitars, Chinese knockoffs, all that stuff, I don't support any of that. I don't dig it. I don't like it when people do it, and I won't work on them, and I won't support it and all that kind of stuff. It's come up a lot, and we've gotten a lot of questions about even, common shapes and stuff. But there are laws out there to kind of keep it all straight. So
yeah, and bottom line, you shouldn't pass off anything that's not what it really is in any capacity.
No, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the business is. You shouldn't be copying somebody else's stuff and trying to say it's yours. Yep, exactly. Intellectual property law. I've done a lot of reading on that junk. It's ridiculous. But you got to know it, I guess. All right. Let's pay some more bills. I just wanted to real quickly mention Cruz Tools. We used them in a couple of videos today, actually. So you'll see them on YouTube. Check out cruztools.com. That's CRUZ tools.com. If you want to have all your tools in one place that are specially made for guitar techs. It's not random tools that you're pulling out of your toolbox. The string cutters don't go dull. They cut nice and close. They've got proper rulers with the right measurements. They've got proper feeler gauges that work for the measurements that we need to make. I mean, this stuff is great. So cruztools.com, check it out. They send us stuff. We use it. We use it every day. I have been using the same wire cutters, string cutters, and the same screwdrivers out of that. Actually, all those parts. I don't think I've replaced any parts for going on 2 years in a professional capacity all the time in the shop, and I've never worn anything out.
That's impressive.
It is. So the average guy that's just, working on the weekend on his guitar once in a while, these things are going to last years and years and years. So cruztools.com. Definitely check it out. All right. So let's talk about something crazy. I didn't even want to bring this up, but truth is, yes, I did, because I like stuff. I like talking about stuff that people don't want to talk about. So we're going to talk about shims. So, we went, was it the last 6 weeks or something, 5 or 6 weeks, we've gone through every stage of the setup in the guitar, right? And so I thought, maybe we'll throw some, some kind of next level stuff in here now that we've got the basic stuff down. So shims, why would you want to shim a neck? And does it ruin your tone? Well, the biggest thing that ruins tone in a guitar is if it doesn't play right. Period. So if the action is too high or too low, or the thing is not intonated properly, or the nut is too high, that's going to ruin your tone faster than anything else, because your interaction with the guitar is the number one factor to how good you sound, how comfortable you are, how long the thing lasts, how you feel when you play, like how inspired you are, all of those things. That's how you interact with the guitar. So if your setup is wrong, that all goes out the window, or it severely limits it. So one of the kind of next level things that happens sometimes to get the string height correct, and it's typically on Fender style guitars with bolt-on necks, because Fenders do not have any neck angle. So when you look at a Strat or a Tele or a Jazzmaster or a Precision bass or a Jazz bass, any of the Fender bolt-on stuff, the guitar is totally straight. It's like the neck and the body are completely straight. And we talked all the way back in the beginning about the playing surface and the neck relief, giving the string room to move back and forth. But when you have a flat surface, that the guitar is flat and the neck is flat, sometimes you got to change the angles a little bit to get it all to work. And so sometimes it means, and when we do our video that goes along with this episode, I'll show you what I'm talking about instead of wasting time trying to describe it on the radio. But basically, sometimes you're going to need to shim a neck. And somebody is going to say, well, it screws up your tone. It ruins your tone because sustain and the tightness of the neck joint, etc., etc., etc. The contact patch between the heel of the neck and the neck pocket, and that thing's gonna be rock solid tight and flat. No, it doesn't. It just plain does not. And I'll give you the physics behind that. Remember when I bought that stuff? Man, I am so mental blanking right now. Anyway, you know the stuff that you use to check gear backlash on a differential? So where they put this little wax stuff in between there and they roll two gears together and it squishes and it says this is how much
Contact.
This is how much contact it's making. It's also used in cylinder heads. So they can take a cylinder head off of an engine block. They put this little piece of wax in there, and then they bolt the cylinder head back down. And they take the cylinder head off, and it has squished that wax out to a certain width, and then that tells you, how flat, how much contact is going between those two surfaces. So we did this. You remember when I did this? I bought this stuff, and we tried like 6-7 different ways of putting it into the neck pocket of a Telecaster, a Fender Telecaster, not one of ours, a Fender Telecaster. We bolted it all up, and do you know that stuff never showed full contact across that neck pocket? Not one time. Proving that you, in no way, shape, or form, unless you have two machined surfaces, and let me tell you, the tolerances on most CNC machines is not going to get you completely tight, super solid contact. Okay? The bottom line is, though, when we put a shim in the same neck pocket and checked the contact points, they didn't change. So it didn't make it to where you couldn't bolt the neck down just as much. You couldn't. It's not that you could. You still could tighten the neck down just the same amount. You didn't lose any pressure. There was no unevenness, nothing like that. Because this brings me to the next thing, is a lot of people like to tighten their necks down so tight. I get guitars in here all the time, and I'm like, what, did you put this together with an impact wrench? When you take your neck off of your guitar, and we talked about this with bridges today in our video too.
Okay.
Just run the screw in till it hits the bottom, and then give it a little. That's all you need. It doesn't need torque, We're not talking. I mean, a Honda CRF 250X only has 17 foot-pounds of torque on a cylinder head. We don't need.
You just got nerdier.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like that much. Yeah. So that's what it is. Which reminds me.
Oh, gosh.
Completely off topic.
Yes.
I had a friend when I lived in New York who's Italian, and his grandfather told me that the perfect amount of salt on your food is if you sing this song when you are sprinkling your salt. If you go, neener, 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 neener.
What is that song?
It's not, but it's just that. Neener, 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 neener. And shake the salt.
Neener.
That's it. Shake the salt shaker. Neener, 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 neener.
Shake it like a salt shaker. That's more of my song.
And it's the perfect amount of salt for your food. And it is. Try it. Well, we use a grinder now, but I'm just saying, next time you have to shake some salt, sing that little song. It'll work perfect every time.
Shake it like a salt shaker. Got it.
So, when you are bolting a bridge on your guitar, when you are bolting anything on your guitar, do not use tons of force. Just bolt that neck on and go, and it's done. You don't need to over torque it. We're only talking about a couple of pounds of pressure. Okay. The thing's not going to break in half. It's not going to come apart. The only thing you got to worry about with a Strat or a Tele is to make sure that the neck doesn't move from side to side, but that doesn't even take that much. Okay. This whole premise that a shim is going to kill your tone because there's no contact pressure is stupid, because there's no contact pressure anyway. It just kind of doesn't make sense. Now, the one thing that can matter is your shim material, because if you use some really spongy stuff, it can move around. Right. So, but Fender for 50, 60 years has used this cereal box stuff. It's like a little thin gray paper. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, well, it's going to squish and it's going to expand and contract. But the thing is if your guitar, if the humidity is changing that much, that's going to expand and contract, then your whole guitar is moving anyway. So it doesn't matter. It's just people get way too bent about these little tiny details. So I'll tell you what I use. Well, I use carbon fiber because it's super stable, but it's because we also... Plastic gauge. That's what it's called.
Alan wins.
Man.
Oh, Luke did it too. We weren't paying attention.
Right.
Good job, guys.
Thanks, guys. I can never remember the name of that stuff. Plastic gauge. Anyway.
I knew it was going to be like, duh.
Exactly. Well, there was a time in my former life where I used that stuff by the foot because I was a machinist and I built motors and stuff. But I just haven't used it in so long. So anyway, yes, we used plastic gauge. We bolted it in there and we saw, you know what? There's no more or less pressure with a shim or without. It just, don't even argue about it. Just put the guitar together so it plays the best and your tone won't suffer. If you don't do it and the guitar doesn't play very good, then your tone's going to suffer. It's the bottom line. It's not that big a deal. Anyway, so people get really worked up about shims. Like it's just going to ruin them. So material. Cereal box. It's the best.
Right.
It works awesome. Put it behind the two back bolts, and one piece of cereal box is going to get you about 1.5 degrees of neck angle. I like to go for 2.5 to 3, so I use 2 pieces of cereal box. We don't eat cereal, but we do drink Coke, so I actually use literally ask Leslie, go in the kitchen and rip a piece of the box off, and I cut it from the Coke box. And I use 2 layers in the back of a Fender Telecaster neck pocket, and I bolt it together, and that gives me about 2.5 degrees of neck angle. You'll set your saddles up. I'll have to reset everything back up and stuff, but you'll find that your action is lower, the thing plays flatter, it plays faster, and the action will be more even, especially as you get to the higher frets on a Fender guitar. It's not always necessary, but sometimes it is.
So Luke is saying he used a Fender thin, quote, Dorito pick and cut a 1/4 inch or 1/4, cut a quarter strip, I don't know, off for Shim Material.
Yeah, a lot of people use guitar picks. Yep. Yeah, they do. It's just hard to cut them, and it's hard to keep them in the right spot. So when we
just have a piece of material that is that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we put this video together, to go along with the show, I'm going to actually show people what I do and how to do it. We're going to take a neck off, maybe of my purple guitar or something. We'll show you. Also, if you have a Bigsby or do anything like that, you have to shim the neck. And that has to be 4 to 6 degrees depending on what bridge setup you're using. Which is, 4 degrees is a Les Paul. So neck angle's a thing, and it works. It's really, really works well. I worked with a guitar company for a while that was cutting the neck angle into a tele pocket. So every Telecaster had 2 degrees, and they played amazing.
Yeah, you really like that.
Yeah, for sure. And when we do Bigsby guitars, still, I like to pre-cut the angle into the neck pocket so that you don't have to use such a huge shim, because, it gets to the point where you could literally have a gap in there and cause some trouble. But no, it's not a big deal. Just try it. If you have to. If you don't have to, don't. But it's not going to hurt anything. You're not going to kill your tone. The main thing is that you interact with the guitar properly and that you are comfortable, and that's that. Man, I appreciate everybody listening tonight. We got more people asking questions.
Yeah, so we did have a question before you started your discussion tonight, and
Okay.
since you have some extra time, I know we've talked about this. I'm sure there's a video, but I just wanted to bring it up since I have a chance. Luke is asking about different caps, ceramic disc versus orange drops versus bumblebee, etc.
Okay. Yeah, we could talk about that real quick. Okay. The simple and I don't really have a video on this because it's one of those subjects that I avoided for so long. Because this is one where cork sniffy people really go off. Okay. Ceramic caps. Okay, so the basic premise between cap materials is this. Every material, a capacitor is 2 metal plates with a gap in the middle. And every material, plastic, glass, aluminum, doesn't matter, conducts a tiny bit of electricity. It's called the dielectric coefficient. So every material has a little bit different efficiency about how much electricity can go through there and at what and then the gap and the size of the plates and stuff controls the amount. So ceramic does sound a little different than metal film. It sounds a little different than polyurethane, which is what a Sprague orange drop is. The paper and oil literally is like paper rolled up in a roll with oil in it. All that stuff does sound a little different. Are you going to hear it? That really depends on how good your pickups are, how noisy your guitar is. It's really, really, really subtle. And, there's a lot of people, depending on what kind of music they play, that may not even be able to tell the difference. There are people that swear that one cap is better than the other. Like paper and oils, for example, everybody thinks they're amazing. Bumblebee cap is basically like a paper and oil cap that was some special manufacturer made it, and it was supposed to be awesome. But the ones that you buy now are just normal caps with the bumblebee thing around them, and they're kind of fake, so you got to watch for that. But if you ever want to try a paper and oil cap, let me know. You can order them from me. We don't have them on the website right now, but where some other places online are charging $12 and $15 for these things, I'm going to charge you like $5 or $4 because they're not that expensive. They just want to make them into this super elite thing, and they're just not that big a deal. They make a little difference, but they won't on every guitar, they won't with every rig, and they won't with every style of music, and they won't with every set of ears. So don't spend $15 or $18 to experiment.
And what piece of the process was that conversation? Because we talked about it lengthy in this show. Do you remember?
Well, we talked about it early on in the tone when we were talking about tone circuits, for sure. Yeah. I need to do a video on it.
Okay.
I need to do a video on capacitor materials because I I know I did, but it was pretty general. You know, when we first started this, I was really trying to stay kind of middle of the road with these subjects. So like this more controversial stuff like shims and tone wood and capacitor material and all this kind of stuff, I kind of stayed away from it.
But it doesn't have to be controversial.
No, and so that's why there isn't one. But I will make one because it needs to be done. I did write a blog post at dylantalkstone.com about it, but it was really old, probably 2015 or something.
And then just to follow up to our conversation about the neck angle, Marcus says he likes to taper the pocket sometimes, but he doesn't recommend it if you're not familiar with woodwork.
Yeah, because you can really screw it up, because if you have the neck angle wrong from one side to the other, then it basically gives you a twisted neck and the guitar will never ever be right. So don't do it if you don't have the proper tools. Just use a piece of cereal box. It'll be fine. Cheerios, Honey Nut.
Shameless plug.
That would be my
cereal of choice.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to try to shim a neck, if there's a couple that you think you have, shoot me a message. I'll send you some carbon fiber. It's awesome.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to mention, I really appreciate the interaction that we're getting tonight on the Facebook page. It helped us address some of your questions. You filled some gaps when we drew a blank on plastic age. So I really do appreciate that. We want to build that up because we want it to be more user driven, and it makes it fun for me because sometimes I don't have a clue what he's talking about. So thanks.
Yeah. And share this. Please share what we're doing here because this is super fun. And I will say that the interaction from everybody is what makes this fun for me. If there's nobody on the other side of that,
we don't know if you're listening or not.
Yeah, exactly. We're sitting in a closet right now.
I mean, we could talk to ourselves anytime.
Right. And we do.
Yes.
So I really appreciate it. Please check us out on all the social medias this week. Dylan Pickups and Dylan Talks Tone. Send us a message. Oh, Dylan's Crazy Shirts has a new shirt.
Yes.
Dylan's Crazy Shirts has a new shirt, and it's cool.
I'll share that link as well in our discussion.
Please do that. That's a cool new shirt. I know the other one wasn't so kind of guitar or band centric, but this one is a little more so. So I think you'll dig it. Because, t-shirts are fun. So, and those of you that ordered the last ones, I believe you're going to start seeing them in the next 4 or 5 days, according to my tracking information. So for those of you that ordered the shirt from the last time, I really appreciate that. And, please keep up with us. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks a lot for listening. Check us out tomorrow on our YouTube channel, Dylan Talks Tone. You can check us out tonight. There's like 200 videos. You'll be late for work tomorrow, I promise. Have a great night.